Exactly 1 week after Current TV fired Keith Olbermann, he struck back with a stinging lawsuit. It calls Al Gore and Joel Hyatt, the channel's owners, dilettantes portraying entertainment industry executives, and says that Hyatt tried to blackmail him with threats. Oh, and Olbermann is asking for up to $70 million. But Olbermann isn't only battling in the courtroom. He took to David Letterman's couch to explain the unhappy demise of Countdown.
I screwed up. I screwed up really big on this. It's my fault that it didn't succeed, in the sense that I didn't think the whole thing through. I didn't say, you know, if you buy a $10 million chandelier, you should have a house to put it in.
I think you're being contrite to almost a fault here, because it's my impression, my inference from this is that they got you over there and didn't know what to do.
And on Friday, Current TV filed an equally blistering countersuit against Olbermann. And Marisa Guthrie, you've been covering this for Hollywood Reporter. With all the vitriol being hurled by both sides, does anyone have the upper hand here?
Well, it'll come down to if Current can prove that Keith had unauthorized absences. I mean, one of the things that everyone always says about Keith is he actually knows his contract better than the lawyers. So if he's out there pounding the table, as Joel Hyatt put it, he probably knows that he can pound the table. Will they get $70 million out of Current? That would probably bankrupt Current. So there probably will be some sort of settlement here.
Okay. I want to read a couple of the internal emails that have come out in this litigation. If we can put the first one up on the screen. This is Olbermann writing to the Current CEO, Joel Hyatt, after a production snafu. Give me a name so I know which of them to kill with my bare hands. And after another production difficulty, Olbermann writes to Joel Hyatt, can you assassinate him, please? Now, Sharon Waxman, let's allow for some comedic overstatement, but this lawsuit does paint a picture of Olbermann, of course, had his bitter breakup with MSNBC just 14 months ago, as a bit difficult to work with.
Yeah, the story of Keith Olbermann is it's always about Keith Olbermann. And so at a certain point, and I think we've hit that point, we're tired of hearing Keith Olbermann talk about Keith Olbermann or other people talk about Keith Olbermann. You're ostensibly there to entertain us with a fantastic news report. And this is at least the third time where a relationship with his bosses has ended badly. So at some point you got to say, well, maybe it's not the bosses every single time. Not that I'm trying to defend the establishment, but I think he's just worn out his welcome with the audience. Just judging by the comments on our stories, that there's very few people defending Keith Olbermann, and this huge mass of readers saying, could you just go away with this stuff? It's just, we've had enough of it.
Let me put up one more email in which Keith Olbermann is writing to current President David Borman, former executive here at CNN, after Borman questioned the purchase of a $5,000 desk for Countdown. We can only conclude here, writes Keith, that you have now moved from unjustifiable egotism and unparalleled incompetence to outright sabotage of this program.
Howie, you know what? I couldn't agree with Sharon more about this. Olbermann is really a nasty kind of arrested adolescent. And look, when he came over there, I said his audience of 1 million viewers is not going to go with him, and it's not Current's fault. It's his fault. He never had that kind of loyalty. He only brought an audience of about 177,000 with him. And that's when he started going psycho, when he realized that he was going to be embarrassed by this. Now we have the Mike Wallace death. Let me just say two things. Mike Wallace was a mercurial guy as well. You see a career where that was channeled into doing great journalism. This is a career where he does nothing but self-absorbed craziness.
But I want to push back on this,
that's all
because
about him.
From Olbermann's point of view, he went to, admittedly a much smaller network, maybe had unrealistic expectations, but there were times when the lights went out, when the cameras cut away in mid-sentence, there were a lot of production snafus, so naturally he and his team were exercised about that.
Well, as someone said elsewhere, why didn't he take some of the money and put it into that production, number one? Now, but I'll tell you something else. I went back and looked at the opening week reviews, mine included, and I was looking for a cable access bad-looking show, and I didn't find it. And Howie, if you go through there, you will find only a few slight mentions of glitches in technology. It didn't start out that way. This is a guy who hasn't come to work, I think the lawsuit says 19 of 41 days in January and February.
Right.
That's outrageous.
Right.
Listen, this is a child, and the faster they get rid of them, the better off they are.
But what I would say is that when you hire hire a pit bull who knows how to growl on TV. And look, he's a talented broadcaster, knows how to draw an audience, whether you like him or not. You can't be surprised that he claws the furniture at home. Sharon Waxman, what about going on Letterman? I mean, he's out there. And he is telling his story in public, and he's being a little bit funny and self-deprecating. Al Gore isn't out there on television, so does that give him an edge?
Yeah, I think, again, I think it goes back to whether or not he's kind of crossed the line. Yeah, no, it's smart to go on Letterman, and he has this massive Twitter following, and as I'm sure, you followed him, we all follow him, he's putting out these tweets, every 5 seconds saying how terrible Curran is and all of that. Right. The question is how much credibility he has overall with this kind of stuff, and I just think that he's just over the line on that one.
A brief comment from you, Marisa?
Enough times.
Well, I think that, what happened, the inconvenient truth of this situation is that, sorry, I couldn't resist, is that they tried to tame one of the, wildest, most outspoken, most difficult personalities in TV news. They get this guy, they know his background, they put him in there, he's demanding,
they gave him
he's
a
difficult.
management role.
Exactly. They give him a management role, and then they're surprised when he behaves in a way that they don't quite know how to handle.
All right. We got to leave it there, but thanks so much. This story obviously not going away. Marisa Guthrie, Sharon Waxman, and the mild-mannered David Zurich here in Washington.